The lights of Los Angeles glimmered like a sea of dreams, every glow on the horizon whispering of hope, fame and destiny. Amid the chaos of honking cars, street musicians, and people rushing to catch a glimpse of the famous theater, one young Filipino boy stood quietly at the corner of the boulevard. He was no celebrity, not yet. He clutched a worn leather bag that carried everything he owned, and in his heart, he carried something far greater, the weight of a promise. His name was Miguel, a 15-year-old boy from Manila whose voice had once echoed through the small alleys of his hometown, where locals would stop and smile as he sang Elvis Presley songs. Back then, his audience was made of tricycle drivers, market vendors, and kids playing on dusty streets. Tonight his audience would be the entire world. Dressed in his simple white button-up shirt and black jeans, he felt both ordinary and extraordinary. His shoes, though slightly scuffed, shone under the theater's glow. As he stood outside the Grand AGT Theater, the giant posters of Simon Cowell, Sofia Vergara, Heidi Klum, and Howie Mandel stared down at him like gods of entertainment, silently testing whether he was worthy to step onto their stage. He looked up, took a deep breath, and whispered to himself, "For my family, for my country, for the dream." Inside, the air was electric. Contestants were practicing lines, dancers stretching, magicians whispering their tricks, and singers humming nervously. Miguel kept to himself, his fingers tapping rhythmically against his leg, rehearsing silently the song he had sung 1,000 times but never in front of the world. His father had taught him this song when he was just 7 years old. They would sit under a flickering streetlight outside their home, his father strumming a cheap guitar while he sang softly, "Can't help falling in love with you." His father's voice had a warm tone, rich with wisdom and love. That memory fueled him tonight. When his father passed away 2 years ago, Miguel had promised to carry his music to places his father could only dream of. And now, standing behind the heavy velvet curtain, he felt his father's presence like a comforting shadow. The stage manager signaled for him to step forward. His heart pounded as he walked into the blinding light, the roar of the audience filling his ears like a thunderstorm. For a moment he wanted to run back. But then he saw the judges' faces, Simon's intense gaze, Sofia's encouraging smile, Heidi's gentle curiosity, and Howie's friendly nod. He gripped the microphone tightly and forced himself to smile. "What's your name?" Simon asked, his voice calm but sharp. "I'm Miguel," the boy answered, his accent soft but clear. "I'm from the Philippines." Simon raised his eyebrows, intrigued. "And what are you going to do for us today, Miguel?" "I'm going to sing a song by Elvis Presley," he replied. The crowd murmured with mild surprise. Some smiled, some seemed skeptical. After all, Elvis was a legend, and to take on such a name required courage. Simon leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "All right, let's hear it," he said. The lights dimmed. The familiar guitar riff began, and for a few seconds, time stood still. Miguel closed his eyes. His first words trembled slightly, but then his voice settled, deep and velvety, carrying that timeless tone that could make anyone stop and listen. "Wise men say only fools rush in." The room fell into silence. Every note he sang carried years of struggle, love, and memory. His voice had that haunting echo of Elvis but carried something new. A raw emotional depth that came from living through pain and hope all at once. The judges' expressions changed quickly. Heidi's mouth opened in surprise, Sofia's eyes widened, and Simon, who rarely showed emotion, leaned forward, eyes fixed on the boy as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. By the second verse, the audience was already on their feet. The theater was glowing with cell phone lights. The sound engineer in the back whispered, "He sounds like Elvis reborn." The moment Miguel hit the final line, he lifted his hand slightly, tears pooling in his eyes, and sang from his soul, "Take my hand, take my whole life too." His voice cracked ever so slightly, and that imperfection made it perfect. The entire hall erupted into cheers. Miguel lowered the mic, breath trembling, unable to speak. The noise of applause was deafening. For a moment, he didn't even notice Simon standing up from his chair, walking slowly toward the golden buzzer. He pressed it without hesitation. A massive explosion of gold confetti filled the stage like a shower of dreams. Miguel gasped, covering his mouth in disbelief. Tears streamed down his cheeks as the audience screamed. He looked up, overwhelmed, whispering, "Thank you, Elvis, thank you, God." Simon clapped slowly, still visibly amazed. "That," he said, "was one of the most unexpected, most emotional performances I've ever seen." Miguel bowed deeply, still crying, unable to believe what was happening. For the boy who once sang on street corners, this moment was nothing short of a miracle. Backstage, the world felt like a blur. The lights, the cheers, the smell of the confetti still clinging to his hair. It all felt like a dream he might wake up from. He kept whispering to himself, "Did that really just happen?" Crew members came up to congratulate him, their eyes glowing with admiration. Even the other contestants who had been nervous minutes before now looked at him with respect. When his mother appeared from behind the curtain, she was crying, clutching a small rosary in her hand. "You did it, Anak," she said, wrapping him in her arms. Miguel broke down completely, sobbing into her shoulder. "I sang for him, Ma," he whispered, referring to his late father. "He was there with me." His mother nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, he was. He's proud of you." As they walked out of the theater, the cool Los Angeles night air wrapped around them, carrying the faint sound of street performers singing and people still buzzing about the show. Miguel felt light, almost weightless. His phone began to vibrate with notifications. Messages from relatives, friends, and strangers from around the world. Within hours, clips of his performance flooded social media. People wrote comments like, "Elvis would be proud," "Filipino talent never fails," and "I cried watching this." In Manila, his old neighbors gathered around a small TV in a sari-sari store, cheering every time his face appeared on the screen. His old music teacher cried silently, whispering, "He made it." The video crossed millions of views overnight. News channels picked it up. Miguel's name began trending globally. People called him the Filipino Elvis, a title that made him smile shyly but also humble him deeply. He never wanted to be Elvis. He just wanted to share the same love for music that Elvis had given the world. A few days later, AGT released a behind-the-scenes clip showing Simon saying, "When he started singing, I thought it was a recording. Then I realized it was him, real, raw, and emotional. That's what music should do. It should surprise you." Miguel watched that interview with his mom, tears in both their eyes. The world had heard his voice, but they hadn't seen his journey. The nights he went hungry, the mornings he sang just to earn a few coins, the years he doubted himself. Now all of it made sense. Every sacrifice, every rejection, every lonely performance on a street corner had led to this one golden moment. It wasn't just a victory for him, it was for every Filipino kid who dared to dream beyond the horizon. As the sun rose the next morning, Miguel found himself back on stage, this time alone. The confetti had been cleaned, the cameras turned off, but he wanted one last moment with the silence. He walked to the center, the same spot where he had stood trembling before, and looked up at the empty seats. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. The janitor sweeping nearby smiled. "You did something special, kid." Miguel chuckled, adjusting his white shirt, still slightly wrinkled from last night. "It's not me," he said, "it's the music." He closed his eyes and began to hum again, the melody soft and tender, echoing in the empty hall like a promise to the future. The same boy who once sang to streetlights now sang to the stars. Somewhere out there, his father's spirit listened proudly. Days turned into weeks, and offers began to flood in. Interviews, talk shows, even invitations to perform in other countries. Miguel remained grounded. In every interview, he mentioned his home, his mother, and his people. "I'm just a Filipino boy who loves Elvis," he'd say with a shy smile. His humility touched hearts even more than his voice. Simon Cowell himself later said in another interview, "There was something about that performance that reminded me of why I started in this business. The purity, the honesty, the magic of music connecting people." Miguel watched that clip too, unable to believe that one of the toughest judges in the world had said that about him. One evening, as he prepared for his next big show, he stood before the mirror in his dressing room, still wearing his signature white shirt. He whispered, "Don't forget where you came from." Then he smiled, remembering the boy who once sang barefoot in Manila, dreaming of lights he had never seen. That boy was still inside him, still guiding every note he sang. He took a deep breath, looked at his reflection, and softly sang, "Can't Help Falling in Love." The voice that had stunned the world filled the quiet room once more, warm and sincere. It wasn't just a song anymore. It was his story, his legacy, his connection to everyone who had ever believed in him. And as he stepped back onto the stage that night, greeted by a standing ovation, he knew his journey had only begun. A Filipino voice carrying the timeless soul of Elvis, echoing through hearts around the world.